one of the ways to get through stress is to acknowledge that, oh, I actually have two conflicting desires, and either I need to resolve it, I need to pick one and then be okay losing the other, or I will decide later.
The body's stress regulation apparatus, which is physiological, it has to do with the connection between certain brain centers down to the adrenal gland, which is the stress gland, you might say. No child is born with stress regulation. Infants don't know how to regulate their stresses.
Well, neither do adults.
Well, as you say in your book, most adults are 8 years old, if that. But I thought that was pretty generous. It might have been 3 or 4 years old. Well, stress regulation, like other functions, has to develop. So that when something stressful happens, I know how to face it without being overwhelmed. And that depends on the development of these brain circuits and receptors for brain chemicals. Now, trauma interferes with the development of the body's stress regulation apparatus. So that we become adults and we don't know how to handle stress. And then we seek escape. So one of the ways that people escape from stress is addictive behaviors. You know, for example, so if you talk about or talk to addicts, if I feel like at my own addictive behaviors, even if I go quote unquote sober for a while, and then I relapse, what usually happened is that I got stressed. And then I reach for that addictive outlet as a way of soothing my stress. So that's how it shows up. But physiologically it shows up by a dysregulation of the body's stress regulation apparatus. So there's not just psychological, we're talking physiology here. And you've done these studies in laboratory animals, where the way the mother handles that infant rat pup in the first few days of life will have an impact on the adult rat's capacity to handle stress. And if you take the rats, by the way, whose mothers don't handle them as well, and you put them with mothers who do, their brains develop normally. So it's not a genetic effect. It's what's called an epigenetic effect. It's the environment acting on the genes.
Anxiety and stress are interesting. They're very related. Stress is when, like if you look at an iron beam, when an iron beam is under stress, it's because it's being bent in two different directions at the same time. So when your mind is under stress, it's because it has two conflicting desires at once. So for example, you know, you want to be liked, but you want to do something selfish, and you can't reconcile the two, and so you're under stress. You want to do something for somebody else, you want to do something for yourself, right? These are examples. You don't want to go to work, but you want to make money, so you're under stress, right? So you have two conflicting desires. And I think one of the ways to get through stress is to acknowledge that, oh, I actually have two conflicting desires. And either I need to resolve it, I need to pick one and then be okay losing the other, or I will decide later. But at least just being aware of why you're stressed can help alleviate a lot of stress. And then anxiety, I think, is sort of this pervasive, unidentifiable stress where you're just kind of stressed out all the time and you're not even sure why. And you can't even identify the underlying problem. And I think the reason for that is because you have so many unresolved problems, unresolved stress points that have piled up in your life that you can no longer identify what the problems are. And there's this mountain of garbage in your mind, and it's a little bit of it poking out at the top like an iceberg. And that's anxiety. But underneath, there's a lot of unresolved things. And so you just need to kind of go through very carefully every time you're anxious. Like, okay, why am I anxious this time? I don't know why. Oh, well, let me sit here and just think about it. Let me write down what the possible causes could be. Let me meditate on it. Let me journal. Let me talk to a therapist. Let me talk to my friends. Let me just kind of see, like, when does that stress go away? If you can kind of identify and unravel and resolve these issues, then I think that helps get rid of anxiety. A lot of the anxiety is piled up because we move through life too quickly, not observing our own reactions to things. We don't resolve them. So this goes counter to what I was saying earlier about not reflecting too much on things. But you reflect on the problems to observe them and solve them. You don't reflect on them to feel better about yourself.
To indulge them.
Well, if you're doing it to just feel better about yourself, that could be strengthening your personality and your ego, and could be creating a more fragile personality.